Good morning. There are mornings when the sun rises, but our hearts do not. The sky becomes bright, yet inside us there is still a shadow. Some wake up carrying the weight of yesterday's disappointments. Some carry worries about tomorrow. Some carry wounds that no one else can see. There are moments in life when the heart carries a weight that no one else can see. From the outside, everything may appear normal. People smile, they speak politely, they continue with their daily routines. But inside, something feels heavy, almost like the soul is tired from carrying too much for too long. Many people wake up in the morning already exhausted, not from physical work, but from the silent battles of the mind. Thoughts that refuse to rest, memories that keep returning, words spoken in the past that still echo painfully in the heart, regrets that whisper, if only things had been different, and worries about the future that quietly ask, what if things get worse? This is the hidden weight of the heart. It is the burden of unspoken fears, the quiet sadness that appears in the middle of the night when the world is asleep. It is the pressure of expectations from others, and sometimes even harsher expectations from ourselves. People try to stay strong, try to act like everything is fine, but deep within, the heart feels weary. Sometimes the weight comes from disappointment. You trusted someone, and they let you down. You prayed for something, and it didn't happen the way you hoped. You gave your effort, your time, even your love, yet the result left you feeling empty. And slowly, without realizing it, negative feelings begin to grow. Doubt creeps into the mind. Fear begins to speak louder than faith. The heart starts asking difficult questions. Why am I feeling this way? Why does everything seem so heavy? Why does it feel like I'm fighting alone? These emotions are real, and they are deeply human. Every heart, no matter how strong it appears, experiences moments of weakness. Even the strongest person has nights when the mind refuses to rest, and the heart feels overwhelmed. But the most difficult part about this hidden weight is that many people carry it silently. They do not talk about it. They do not show it. They simply continue moving forward while the burden quietly grows heavier. A weary heart can make the world look darker than it truly is. Small problems begin to feel enormous. Hope starts fading slowly, like a candle losing its flame, and the mind begins replaying negative thoughts again and again. Yet even in these moments, something deep within the human soul longs for relief. The heart wants peace. It wants to breathe again without feeling pressure inside the chest. It wants to feel light again, free from the chains of worry, guilt, and sadness. And the truth is, recognizing this hidden weight is not weakness. It is honesty. It is the first step toward healing. Because when we admit that our hearts are tired, when we acknowledge that we cannot carry everything alone, something powerful begins to happen. The walls we built around our pain begin to crack. The silence that surrounded our struggles begins to break. And in that moment of honesty, the heart opens just enough to receive something it has needed all along: comfort, peace, and the gentle reminder that even in our most exhausted moments, we were never meant to carry life's burdens by ourselves. Every morning carries a quiet miracle that many people overlook. The sun rises again. The sky slowly changes from darkness to light, and the world begins another day. It happens so naturally that we sometimes forget how powerful that moment truly is. A new dawn is more than just the start of another day. It is a reminder that life is constantly offering us another chance. No matter what yesterday looked like, the morning arrives with a gentle whisper, begin again, Yesterday may have been filled with mistakes, disappointment, or heavy emotions. Perhaps harsh words were spoken, opportunities were missed, or situations unfolded in ways that left the heart discouraged. Some people go to sleep carrying regret, wishing they could rewind time and do things differently. Others lie awake worrying about problems they feel powerless to change. But when the morning comes, something sacred happens. The darkness of the night slowly fades, and light spreads across the horizon. It is as if creation itself is reminding us that darkness is never permanent. There is always a sunrise. In the same way, the struggles we face do not have the final word over our lives. The pain of yesterday does not have to control the hope of today. A new morning is God's quiet way of telling the human heart, your story is still moving forward. Sometimes people believe they are stuck in the same cycle of negative thoughts and painful emotions. They wake up expecting the day to feel just as heavy as the one before it. They carry yesterday's fears into today's sunrise without even realizing it. The mind replays the same worries, the same doubts, the same inner battles, but the beauty of a new dawn is that it interrupts that cycle. It gently invites the heart to pause and look upward. When the first light touches the sky, it reminds us that life is not frozen in our worst moments. Time moves forward, healing moves forward, hope moves forward. God does not allow the night to last forever, and He does not intend for our hearts to remain in darkness either. Think about how the earth rests in the night. Everything becomes quiet, the noise fades, the activity stops. Then slowly the light returns and the world begins again. Birds begin to sing, the air feels fresh. There is movement, possibility, and new energy. In many ways, the human soul needs that same renewal. A new morning allows us to release what we carried yesterday. It gives us the opportunity to approach life with fresh perspective. Even if the problems remain, our hearts do not have to face them with the same exhaustion. The sunrise tells us that hope can rise again too. You may feel tired today. You may still be carrying worries about your family, your future, your responsibilities, or the things that seem uncertain. But the presence of a new dawn means that God has not abandoned your journey. If He allowed you to see another morning, it means there is still purpose ahead of you. Another prayer to be spoken, another step to be taken, another opportunity for healing to begin. The light breaking through the sky is not just a natural event. It is a message of mercy. It tells every weary heart that yesterday's darkness does not define today's possibilities. And sometimes all a tired soul needs is that gentle reminder that every sunrise is God opening the door to a new beginning. There comes a moment in every person's life when the heart simply cannot carry the weight anymore. The mind becomes crowded with thoughts that refuse to rest. Worries repeat themselves like a storm that never seems to pass. Negative feelings slowly wrap themselves around the soul until even simple moments of peace feel distant. Many people try to fight these emotions alone. They tell themselves to be stronger. They try to ignore the fear, suppress the sadness, or push away the anger. On the outside, they keep moving forward, fulfilling responsibilities and smiling when necessary, but inside, the pressure continues to grow. Negative feelings have a quiet way of settling deep in the heart. Fear whispers about what might go wrong. Regret reminds us of what cannot be changed. Bitterness holds on to the pain caused by others, and anxiety constantly asks questions about the future that have no clear answers. The human heart was never designed to carry all of that by itself. There is a point where strength alone is not enough. There is a point where determination cannot silence the noise inside the mind, and it is often at that very moment when a person feels most overwhelmed that something incredibly powerful can happen. The heart begins to surrender. Surrender does not mean giving up on life. It does not mean accepting defeat. Instead, it means recognizing that some burdens are simply too heavy to carry alone. It means opening the hands of the soul and allowing God to take what we can no longer hold. Prayer becomes the place where that surrender begins. Not a perfect prayer with elegant words, but an honest prayer. The kind of prayer that comes from deep emotion. The kind where a person simply speaks to God the way a weary heart speaks when it finally admits the truth. God, I am tired. I don't know what to do. My thoughts are heavy and my heart feels restless. Those simple, honest words carry more power than we often realize. Because when a heart opens itself to God, something begins to shift inside. The same fears that once seemed overwhelming begin to loosen their grip. The bitterness that once filled the heart begins to soften. The anxiety that once raced through the mind begins to slow down. It does not always happen instantly. Sometimes the healing is gentle and gradual, like the calm that follows a storm. But every moment spent surrendering those emotions to God brings a little more peace into the soul. Negative feelings lose their power when they are brought into God's presence. Fear loses its voice when faith begins to speak. Bitterness fades when forgiveness begins to grow. Anxiety weakens when trust slowly takes its place. Surrender is not a sign of weakness. It is an act of courage. It takes courage to admit that the heart needs help. It takes courage to let go of control and trust that God understands the pain we cannot fully explain. But when we finally release those burdens, we begin to feel something our souls have been longing for all along. Relief, the kind of relief that allows the heart to breathe again, the kind that reminds us we are not walking through life alone. The moment we place our negative feelings into God's hands is the moment we stop fighting the battle by ourselves and allow divine strength to begin working within us. There is something deeply comforting about knowing that when the human heart reaches its breaking point, it does not stand alone. In the quiet moments when the weight feels too much, when the mind is tired and the soul feels wounded, there is a presence that draws near with gentle compassion. God's presence does not arrive with noise or force. It comes softly, quietly, like a calm breeze touching a restless heart. Many people imagine that they must have everything together before they come to God. They think they must be strong, composed, and certain. But the truth is the opposite. God meets us most tenderly when we are honest about our pain. When the heart is open and the walls we built around our emotions begin to fall, something sacred begins to unfold. God's healing presence begins to enter the places we once tried to hide. There are wounds inside people that others cannot see. Words spoken years ago that still echo in the mind. Betrayals that left scars in the soul. Disappointments that slowly drained hope from the heart. Sometimes these wounds remain buried for so long that a person almost forgets they are there, yet the pain quietly shapes how they feel, how they trust, and how they see the world. God sees those hidden wounds clearly. He sees the silent tears that never fell in front of others. He hears the prayers whispered in moments of loneliness. He understands the ache behind the brave face that many people show to the world. And when we allow His presence into our lives, healing begins in ways we may not immediately notice. The mind that once felt crowded with anxious thoughts begins to feel a gentle calm. The heart that once carried bitterness begins to soften. The heavy emotions that once seemed impossible to escape slowly begin to loosen their grip. God does not rush the process of healing. Just as a wound in the body takes time to recover, the wounds of the heart also need patience and care. His presence works gradually, restoring strength where there was weakness and bringing peace where there was turmoil. Sometimes the healing begins with a simple feeling of being understood, the realization that someone sees the pain and does not turn away. That realization alone can lift a tremendous weight from the soul. God's presence also reminds us of something powerful, that our pain does not define our future. The hurt we experienced may be part of our story, but it is not the end of it. Where there was once sadness, joy can grow again. Where there was once fear, courage can rise again. Where there was once deep exhaustion, new strength can slowly return. The heart begins to feel lighter, not because life suddenly becomes perfect, but because it is no longer carrying its burdens alone. There is comfort in knowing that God walks with us through every difficult season. When His presence fills the spaces that pain once occupied, the soul begins to breathe differently. Hope begins to awaken again. Peace becomes stronger than worry, and the heart that once felt broken slowly begins to feel whole again. This is the quiet miracle of God's healing presence. It restores what pain tried to steal. It renews what exhaustion tried to destroy. And it gently reminds every weary soul that no wound is beyond the reach of divine love. There are seasons in life when a person feels like they have reached the end of their strength. The body may still move through the day, fulfilling responsibilities and facing challenges, but deep inside there is a sense of exhaustion that words cannot fully explain. It is the kind of tiredness that comes not from work alone, but from carrying emotional battles for far too long. Sometimes the struggles pile up one after another. Problems appear before the previous ones are resolved. Disappointments take the place where hope once lived. Slowly, the heart begins to feel drained, as if the energy that once pushed us forward has quietly faded. In those moments, people often ask themselves difficult questions. How much longer can I keep going? Why does everything feel so heavy? Where will I find the strength to face tomorrow? Human strength has its limits. No matter how determined or resilient someone may be, there comes a point where the heart feels worn down. And when that moment arrives, it can feel frightening, because we are used to relying on our own ability to push through. But there is a profound truth hidden inside these moments of weakness. When human strength reaches its limit, it creates space for a greater strength to enter. God does not measure people by how strong they appear. He does not turn away when someone feels weak or overwhelmed. In fact, it is often in those very moments of vulnerability that His strength begins to work most powerfully. When a weary heart turns toward God, something begins to change inside. The problems may still exist. The circumstances may not disappear overnight, but the inner spirit begins to receive a new kind of energy, one that does not come from human effort alone. This strength feels different. It is quiet but steady. It does not rush or panic. It simply gives the soul the ability to stand again. A person who once felt like giving up suddenly finds the courage to take one more step. The mind that once felt defeated begins to see small glimpses of hope. The heart that once felt empty begins to feel a gentle renewal taking place. Divine strength does not always arrive with dramatic signs. Often it comes quietly, like the slow return of breath after a long moment of holding it. It restores the inner parts of us that exhaustion tried to break. There are people who discover that after they surrender their struggles to God, they begin facing life differently. Situations that once caused overwhelming fear begin to feel manageable. Challenges that once seemed impossible become opportunities to trust more deeply. This renewed strength is not about becoming invincible. It is about realizing that we do not have to face life alone anymore. When God strengthens a weary heart, He does more than simply help it survive the storm. He teaches it how to endure, how to grow, and how to keep moving forward even when the path is uncertain. The soul begins to understand that weakness is not the end of the journey. Sometimes it is the very doorway through which new strength enters. And as that strength grows within us, the person who once felt broken begins to stand again, not in their own power, but supported by something far greater. The weary heart becomes steady again, ready to walk forward with quiet courage and renewed faith. When the heart has poured itself out in prayer, and the burdens have been placed into God's hands, something inside begins to change. It may not be loud or dramatic, but it is real. The heart that came into that moment feeling heavy slowly begins to feel lighter. The mind that once raced with worry begins to grow quieter. It is as if a gentle peace settles over the soul, reminding us that we are no longer carrying everything alone. But prayer is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of walking forward again. Life will still continue outside that quiet moment. Responsibilities will still wait. Challenges will still exist. There will still be uncertainties about tomorrow. Yet something within the person who has truly opened their heart to God begins to move differently. Faith begins to replace fear. Walking forward in faith does not mean having every answer. It does not mean knowing exactly how every situation will unfold. Instead, it means trusting that the one who hears our prayers is guiding our steps, even when the road ahead is unclear. Many times, people wait until they feel completely confident before taking another step in life. They want certainty before moving forward. But faith rarely works that way. Faith often asks us to move forward while trusting that God is already preparing the path. After releasing the negative feelings, the doubts, and the pain into God's care, the next step is learning to live differently. Instead of returning to the same thoughts that once filled the mind with worry, the heart begins choosing hope. When fear whispers, faith answers quietly, God is with me. When doubt tries to return, the soul remembers the peace it felt during prayer. It remembers that it is not facing life's struggles alone anymore. Walking forward in faith also means allowing hope to grow again. There may have been moments when hope felt distant or fragile, especially after experiencing disappointment or hardship. But hope is like a small flame. It may flicker in strong winds, yet it can still continue burning. God has a way of protecting that flame within the human heart. As we move through the day with faith, we begin to notice small changes. The same problems that once felt overwhelming begin to look different when viewed through the lens of trust. The same challenges that once brought anxiety begin to feel like opportunities to rely on God's guidance. Step by step, the heart becomes stronger, not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because faith gives us the courage to keep going even when the road is difficult. It reminds us that every step forward matters, no matter how small it may seem. Sometimes walking forward in faith simply means choosing to believe that better days are still ahead. It means waking up each morning and deciding not to let yesterday's pain control today's attitude. It means trusting that healing, strength, and new possibilities are still part of our journey. The person who once felt stuck in fear begins to move again. The one who once felt defeated begins to rise with quiet determination. And the heart that once felt weary begins to walk with a renewed sense of purpose. Faith does not remove every obstacle from the path, but it fills the soul with the courage to continue walking. And when a person walks forward with that kind of trust, every step becomes a reminder that God is leading them toward a future brighter than they once imagined.